And you get women on site that are belittled, that are insulted, women that are cooed at, whistled at by contractors. It is utterly unacceptable. And so we find ourselves having to really push back and make sure that as employers, we create environments where it is clear that you are a professional, irrespective of gender, irrespective of race, and you bring value. And just because you were raised in a household where the women are the ones that have to do all the legwork and the men go and work and the women look after the kids does not mean that it has to be like that in this day and age. And making people aware of their unconscious bias.
Welcome back to another episode of Rethink Mindfulness. I'm happy to have you back here because today we're going to be talking about women in male-dominated fields. There's going to be a lot of gems dropped today, so I hope you pick one of them up. I have a special guest today that's going to help us unfold that topic. Her name is Bongani Mtombeni. Bongani, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Shimi. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. How was your training session this morning?
It was absolutely brilliant. A combination of cardio and strength, so I'm feeling strong.
You're feeling very strong?
Yeah, always.
Okay, if you're feeling strong, then you should
Let's
answer
go.
these questions very, very well. Let's play a game.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Movies or picnics?
Ooh, picnics.
Picnics. Why?
Nature, oxygen, mindful moments.
Okay.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Conversations.
Okay.
You're not watching a screen. Yeah, love it.
Do you do movies though?
I do.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. I don't really watch much TV, but occasionally, yes, I will watch movies. My recent watch was One Love, the Bob Marley.
One Love.
It was so beautiful.
I'm yet to watch it.
Yeah, please watch it. And you're musical
I'll check it
as
out.
well. So
Yeah.
you'll absolutely have a great appreciation
One Love.
for it.
Okay.
One Love.
This is on Netflix.
Apple TV, actually.
Apple TV. Do I have Apple TV?
You can get Apple TV.
I think I do. I think I'm on the trial.
Okay,
Yeah.
get Apple TV.
I'm on the trial.
Watch One Love.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you adventurous or are you cautious?
adventurous for sure.
Okay. What was the last adventurous thing you've ever done? Recently.
Well, recently, not really much. A few years ago, I went parasailing. And, I'm always the one that says, yes, let's do it. Everyone sees these guys that get on the boat and then there's a parachute, it goes up. And I'll be the first one to say, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
And then I convince everyone to go. And then when it's time, I'm like, okay, maybe I want to just back out a little bit. They're like, no, we're here because of you. So, yeah, I really, really enjoyed it in the Seychelles. It was wonderful.
Parasailing. Can I tell you, I've never heard that in my life.
parasailing.
What
It's
does it
great.
entail? What is it about?
So basically, you get strapped to a boat, and then the boat takes off. You're on a chute, but you do it in tandem because I'm not brave enough to do it by
I've seen
myself.
those, yeah.
And then you just go up, and it's great because the boat just takes you around, and then you can check out the coral and the beautiful colors of the ocean.
So you're literally
So
hanging
it's like
behind
you're
the...
literally behind. Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't do
yeah.
that, but
That's
whatever
great.
makes you happy.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Personal chef or personal trainer?
Ooh, personal trainer.
Personal trainer. Why?
As in, would I get a personal chef or
Yeah.
personal trainer?
Yeah.
Because I can cook, my dear. Cooking is my vibe. So definitely a trainer because fitness is my lifestyle.
Okay. Would you say you're a good chef?
Brilliant.
I mean, everybody would say that.
No, I'm really good.
You're really good, and you get compliments.
I do.
And people are not just nice to you. You
No,
really.
I really
Okay.
cook.
Okay. I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate. I'm just-
No, I really cook.
One more. Would you be older than you are or younger than you are if you were to choose? If you had the opportunity to choose again, would you be younger than you are or older than you are?
Older.
Older. Tell me why.
Because with age comes a heck of a lot of wisdom. And so if I do a reflection on how far I've come, in hindsight, I think, I would have probably made a few decisions differently because you're wiser.
Okay.
We always say we aspire to be forever young. Of course, we want to hang on to youth as much as possible. But I think if I had the wisdom that I'm going to have 10 years from now to implement decisions that I'm faced now, it would probably make things a little bit easier, especially in the corporate type of, yeah. But take each day as it comes and you're given grace and wisdom for each day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I was to be asked that question, I would choose to be Yeah, younger than I was. There's a lot of mistakes.
Or you want to so that you can
Rectify some of the mistakes.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better, but it's just I look back now and I promise you, some of the mistakes that I've made, some of them I'm still trying to rectify them as we speak today.
Sure. I agree with that, but I also think that sometimes in life you have to make those mistakes so that you can learn from them, and then they do affect the trajectory of life that you go on.
Powerful.
So there's never a mistake, I think, that you cannot recover from, or that will not leave you better off than if you hadn't made that mistake. So if you think of it from that perspective, you can be grateful in some instances that you were unwise. Because then where you are now, if that hadn't happened, you may not have found yourself where you are now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you please tell the people who you are, a little bit about your background and what exactly you do?
Okay. I'm Bongani Mtombeni. A bit about my background. My career background is in engineering. So I grew up in Velkom, a very small town with traffic circles everywhere. Do you know where that is?
Heard of it? Never been.
Probably just drive past it as you're
Probably
driving
have driven
down
past before, yeah.
to Cape Town. You just miss it
Yeah,
as you go.
yeah.
One of three girls raised by parents that are very driven, determined, taught us that education is pretty much the one thing that will emancipate you from poverty and that sort of thing. I went for chemical engineering. My younger sister went for civil engineering, and my youngest sister is a medical doctor. So that just gives you an idea of the sort of upbringing that we had. Chemical engineering was a wonderful career to pursue because with a chemical engineering degree, you can work in various fields, whether it's engineering or banking or finance. We're just taught to think strategically and in a certain type of way. So it's a career that is well sought after and allows you the versatility to do other things. So I went for chemical engineering, and I think the best decision I could have ever done for myself. I was fully sponsored by Sasol, so I went into the oil and gas stream. But being entrepreneurial by nature, I wanted to go into engineering business. And so then my career meandered over the years. I ran a nuclear consulting engineering company at one point, and then I went into corporate. So I consider myself a corporate mogul. I've been around. And now I'm an executive director and shareholder of a large multidisciplinary consulting engineering company called Royal Haskoning DHV. And that's just a little bit of a summary. Yeah. So I studied a master's in chemical engineering. So they gave me the core engineering foundation. I've done a few business courses, executive development programs at Gibbs. So you always have to, enhance your toolbox with the skills that you need for whatever career you're pursuing.
I like that.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you faced when you were starting out, and how did you overcome them?
So when I went into nuclear, it was very tough because, and also being in Cape Town is Cape Town by nature is not conducive to black business. It's very cliquey.
Okay.
And there's a lot of broeder bonds, and by nature of engineering and nuclear, it was a tough sector to go into because it's an industry that's specialized. A lot of the players were older white males. And so being given the opportunity to go into it as a young black woman, you get a lot of people that undermine you. They look at you, they see that you are young, you are petite, you are cute, you are intelligent, but they kind of don't know how to place you.
Yeah.
So I struggled in that market quite a bit. Really trying to break those barriers, it being male dominated for sure, white male dominant for sure, very cliquey for sure, and trying to just literally knock on the doors, bash down the doors to be taken seriously to do work for the likes of ESCOM. So the challenges were what every person that is in small business encounters in terms of cash flow, not having in-house legal, so making sure that you outsource to get that contractual acumen, understanding every single aspect and facet of running business. So at the time, for example, I had to learn a lot about tendering. You know, and you don't just get business. You have to tender for work. and attend tender briefings and form strategic alliances and do business development and sell your value proposition and be taken in seriously as a woman in this industry. Very difficult, very, very tough. So yeah, I think women still undergo a lot of challenges in technical industries, especially when you are trying to really make a name for yourself and be taken seriously as a game changer. Yeah.
So I imagine it. I mean, it wasn't easy.
Not at
You
all.
trying to navigate through all of that.
Not at all.
Did you have any mentors?
Yes.
People that influenced the direction you're trying to take.
Yes. Mentorship is everything. And so by virtue of where I'm at now, I make it a point and an intention to mentor other people because it is our responsibility to impart knowledge and to make sure that our younger counterparts do not encounter the same challenges that we went to, make life easier for your younger counterparts. So mentorship is key. And when I went into nuclear, I was mentored by one of the best in the industry. His name is Francis Carruthers. So at the time, he was the CEO of Lesedi Nuclear Services. And I, in fact, acquired the nuclear consulting business from him and his team. And it was called Intense Engineering Solutions. And so I made sure that I learned as much as possible from him. He's still my business mentor to this day, very knowledgeable. I learned a lot of really great things like how to navigate business, how to do business development, how to knock on doors, how to break down doors, how to have the rapport to be taken seriously. So for sure, he was one of my mentors and still continues to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Have you experienced any biases as a woman in a male-dominated field?
Of course.
And how do you handle them?
So by very virtue of being in the built environment or in engineering, and this is something that is seen globally. So there's the misconception that women know less than their male counterparts that have the same number of years of experience and the same qualifications. It's an unconscious bias that just exists. And it is what's really bad about it is that it is also perpetuated by the fact that women tend to be paid less than their male counterparts with the same number of experience and the same qualifications. So there's just this unconscious bias that as a woman in a certain field or in the built environment or a technical field, you know less than your male counterpart. And that is just something that we've had to fight in the industry and be intentional about fast-tracking women, giving them the self-confidence that they need, that they can actually do their roles and break down the barriers where these sort of things are perpetuated because they can no longer be tolerated in this day and age. Yeah. You'll have a lot of biases, Shimi. For example, I've got staff that work for me that are passionate about being on site. Okay. So you go on site, you're working on a fantastic construction project. So we will do the construction supervision or the contracts management. And you get women on site that are belittled, that are insulted, women that are cooed at, whistled at by contractors. It is utterly unacceptable. And so we find ourselves having to really push back and make sure that as employers, we create environments where it is clear that you are a professional, irrespective of gender, irrespective of race, and you bring value that results in the execution of great infrastructure projects.
That is crazy. I mean, you mentioned that you find a man, you find a woman, similar skills, or if not the same, getting paid differently. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm saying this to ask you this. Is there any particular memory that you have where you felt like your gender was an issue?
Oh, yeah, lots. And my race. Let's just put the two together. So there's the gender issue, which a lot of women still are undermined, and there's a race issue. So I've had lots of encounters with colleagues, with clients, with partners, and where you will be undermined just by virtue of the fact that you walk through the door and you're a woman. So, for example, I'll give a classic example. I arranged a meeting with some businessmen. They all happen to be white Afrikaners. I happen to speak Afrikaans fluently, but of course, from the minute I walk through the door, they don't know that. And one of them asked me to get everyone coffee, just by very fact that I'm a woman.
Are you serious?
And I'm the one that had actually called the meeting to have a technical discussion with these gentlemen. And I specifically recalled saying, and the gentleman said, kan jy vir my 'n koppie koffie kry? And I was like, nee meneer, jy gaan vir my 'n koppie koffie kry. You know, and so then they were a little bit taken aback because there's this misconception that, oh, there's a black woman, so she must be the tea girl or whatever. So the only way to counter those instances, or instances where women are undermined, instances where there's the misconception that you know less, but you know that you've got a hell of a lot to bring to the table, is to speak up. And so when I mentor the women that I mentor, and when I have conversations and sessions with them, I'm forever encouraging them to speak up, because we have the responsibility to rectify these injustices, and you address it at that moment. Because there's a lot of women that just don't say anything. Then they'll go home and they'll tell their husbands or their families, but then you don't have recourse. You can't go back and say, oh, remember that day when this happened? The moment is lost. The opportunity is lost. So you have to just tackle it as it happens. So I had to say, nee meneer, jy kan vir my 'n koppie koffie kry. And then that kind of took him aback, and I was like, actually, this is my meeting. You know, and then that was like, whoa, okay, hang on a minute. The playing field has changed a little bit here. So you have to tackle it as it happens.
It's just shocking that as a woman you constantly have to prove yourself. I don't know how we got there. I don't know how you women survive in these kind of circumstances, and I applaud you for pushing through all these boundaries, because it's insane. What's the culture like in the workplace, and how do you find that it impacts your experience as a woman in your field?
So I'll speak from a directorship position or stance. So having worked myself up to a place where I can influence, and everyone can influence, so everyone has a circle of influence. And creating a positive culture in the workplace is something that we are all responsible for. It's not an HR responsibility. It's not a people, culture, and communications responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility to have a working environment that is diverse, that is inclusive, that is equitable. There's a lot of articles that have been published. You know, buzzword is EDI, trying to make the workplace equal for everyone, all inclusive, religiously inclusive, sexual orientation inclusive, race inclusive, gender inclusive. And being intentional that where there are biases, we can actually bring them up in a safe environment and change people's perspectives. Because in some instances, some people have an unconscious bias that they may have from childhood that they're not even aware that they have. And they're relying on a shimmy to say, do you actually realize that what you've just said is undermining and demeaning? And just because you were raised in a household where the women are the ones that have to do all the legwork and the men go and work and the women look after the kids, does not mean that it has to be like that in this day and age. And making people aware of their unconscious biases. So I'm very fortunate to work in an organization that is extremely family orientated and family driven. An organization that is very inclusive, irrespective of gender or race or sexual orientation or whatever you are. An organization that makes work the center. We're all there to add value. We implement amazing capital projects. We have teams of people where everyone has a voice and everyone has a skill set and everyone has value to bring. And so it makes going to work a beautiful experience and not a chore or something like, I have to get up and go to work today. Because you genuinely work with colleagues that are mindful and that have a positive and growth mindset. So that is certainly the culture that we have. And being inclusive means being cognizant of people's family responsibilities. I love that it's a flexible working environment. COVID has afforded us the privilege, and let's call it that,
Yeah.
of a hybrid working model. And so people work from home, work in the office 3 days a week, and you still have the flexibility to leave work early to go and watch your kids' football match. And just running business based on trust and inclusion. So I love that. I love the culture that we have at work.
You mentioned inclusive. I want you to elaborate more about that. Are there any initiatives in your organization that help create a more inclusive environment?
Of course, of course. We've got initiatives on the go all the time. I think that by very virtue of the fact that we've got a very progressive leadership team, progressive exco, progressive board, progressive, even the middle management team, we love to incorporate people all the time. So, for example, with Heritage Day, let's just use that as an example because it's just around the corner. It's important that we're mindful of everyone that works as different cultures, different ethnic groups, and so that's a nice platform to have everyone come around, bring food from your culture. Let us all experience one another's cultures. It is fully inclusive. So that's an example of an initiative where everyone is taken into consideration. I'll give you another example of inclusivity. We do not organize, for example, management team excursions or big meetings or anything if we do not take people's religious calendars into consideration. Because by very virtue, then you are excluding those that can, for example, not participate. We were planning something where a few colleagues would have been affected through celebrating Diwali. And so by very virtue of the fact that they are going to be celebrating something that they deem important to their religion, you cannot exclude them by organizing an event on those days. So it's continuously being mindful and continuously just trying to get everyone to be respectful of our diversity, which is our strength, and the fact that we all have value to bring.
I hear you. I hear you. Let's go back to how tough it is to be a woman in most of these industries and organizations. I imagine, as I said before, that you have to prove yourself time and time and again as a woman, and it's exhausting because you have the necessary skills to perform a certain job, but you still have to prove yourself against a man that already has credibility before even performing the job. How do you balance between being a little bit assertive, but avoiding the risk of, getting perceived as being aggressive? How do you strike that balance?
I love that question. And I think to do that, you have to almost allow yourself to be vulnerable somewhat. Already women are looked down upon and labeled as emotional. Sometimes if a woman speaks up, then the men are like, she's just being emotional again, or she's just being a woman. And so I think I have had the privilege and the opportunity to have endured adversity and endured being undermined, that you kind of learn the skill to push back and the skill to clap back. And being assertive does not mean shouting, screaming, or coming across as aggressive. It's really just stating your point. So a Bongani that can be very outspoken, I'll call you out straight up. But it's also having this self-awareness and knowing exactly how to call someone out in a respectful and diplomatic manner. And that is a skill that one has to work on throughout the years and with experience. And also to gauge whether, am I calling a subordinate out because a subordinate wouldn't dare speak to you like that? Or am I addressing someone at board level? Or am I addressing a client that is out of line? And oftentimes I've had to address clients because I think that there's certain behaviors that are absolutely unacceptable. I'll give you an example. I had a project meeting with one of our clients, And in this instance, it was very clear that the client was just trying to throw their weight because they are the client and they're the ones that are going to pay you. So we go there with my team. It's a whole team of engineers. Everyone's got value to add. And the team is males and females alike. But you can see that this client is always addressing the male colleague. So almost like the women are not seen. We're invisible.
Yeah.
And so, and every time one of the female colleagues would speak up, the said gentleman would interrupt them or shut them down. And there are some people that won't say anything because they're afraid that this is the client, and if I tick the client off, we're not going to get paid or whatever. But the way I see it is, if his behavior is unacceptable, it needs to be addressed
100%.
at that moment. And so then I spoke up and I said, excuse me, just as a minute, respectfully, Mr. Client, that aspect of the project has been done by this lady. So can we please afford her the opportunity? Now I'm empowering her. Afford her the opportunity to speak up. And I've come to notice that you are addressing my male colleagues, and I find that utterly disrespectful. Now I'm also making him aware of his behavior, but I'm doing it in a dignified manner. So can we please afford said lady the opportunity to speak up? That ambit of the project she was responsible for. And then he was like, clause retracted, demeanor changes. I've empowered this girl. I've also shown her you can speak up. Then she then speaks up. And from then on, he could then address her in the same way he addressed everyone else. So in some instances, we have to speak up for our colleagues, and we have to really speak up against biases and injustices that we see a lot in a lot of boardrooms, whether you're engaging with clients or people at the same level as you, or diplomats or your subordinates. We can no longer tolerate behavior that then further perpetuates said behavior. We've got to call it out as it happens. Yeah.
But if you were to look at, I mean, organizations are different cultures.
Very, yes.
If you are to look at where we are right now, do you think the scales are being tipped towards balance a bit?
I think it's far better than it was 10, 20 years ago. And I've been in corporate for a very, very long time. But it all starts with leadership. And it all starts with the intention to balance the scales. I'm very pleased to see, for example, in democracy and in the choice of the leaders that we see in the cabinet, there's a lot more women coming to the fore. And it warms my heart because it's an intentional, let's have this lady as the minister. In corporate, it also has to be an intention that we need to create room in Exco for Black women. At board level, it has to be an intention, because whomever you select has to, first and foremost, bring the skills, the experience, the value. Number one. So that can be men or women. But to be intentional that we're going to put a woman here so that we're sending a clear message that we stand for equality, that we stand for diversity, that we stand for inclusion. So it all starts with leadership across the board, whether you're in engineering or corporate or finance, doesn't matter what sector, it's an intention to do that.
But do you think most organizations get that, though? Or the message really needs to be clear?
I think we're getting there. I've seen some great stuff in organizations like Discovery. I've seen some mining houses are still very male prevalent, let's call it that. And I think that government does try and help us. And the key word is try, through things like BBBE legislation, through things like Employment Equity Acts, where corporates have to meet certain metrics to try and balance things and rectify the injustices of the past. That was the intention of BEE. And over the years, some have treated it as a tick box exercise. But I think that it has to be an intention to really be the change that we want to see in corporate, in business, in all spheres, in communities, in churches. We have to start balancing things and be intentional about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear you. If you were to give a young woman right now advice, starting out in your industry, what would you tell her?
To go for it. Go for it. And the reason I would tell her to go for it, at the time I was choosing engineering, it was like frowned upon for women to go into such fields. You're going to mechanical engineering, but you're going to be a mechanic, that's for men. No, it's not being a mechanic. And one of the reasons I pursued engineering was to change the status quo. And I'm very fortunate to have been raised by parents who said, but why not? No, but women can't do, no, but why not? Women can't be in construction, no, but why not? And so therefore, I will show you that women can be in engineering and thrive and excel and be the best in her field.
Should be a matter of skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so my advice to young women, and I love giving advice to young women, and recently I spoke to a bunch of young girls, grade 8s and 9s, because we have to start young.
Absolutely.
And to tell them that they can go into science, technologies, engineering, and mathematics. They can do it, and that you can. Nothing can stop you. No one can tell you that you cannot do it. No one can tell you that there's no finance for it. Because some people think, oh, I'm never going to get the money. You can do it. So I would just tell them to go for it.
Just start.
Just go.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Do you think women are supporting each other enough when it comes to male-dominated industries or fields? Do you think women are sticking together and really trying to lift each other up? Honestly.
I think that we need to see more of it. I've encountered a lot of jealousy in women, and unfortunately, women can be gossipers, women can do backbiting, women can have PhDs, as in pull her down syndromes.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah,
Interesting.
pull her down. And unfortunately, there are a lot of women that find themselves frustrated and they do not climb the ladder fast enough because there's another or other woman with insecurities that will be hell-bent on shutting other women's doors. When in fact, we should celebrate each other and see it as a team, that my success is her success is our success. So I would love to see it more. I think it's just not helping enough. And I think that in certain instances, women can get into a culture of complaining where it can be quite destructive. But we definitely need to support one another more. And actually realize that you don't have to be everything. So I'll give you an example. I've got a senior position. I lead a massive team. We're responsible for the rollout of transportation in Africa. Ports, rail, roads, maritime. It's a very technical field. And I love surrounding myself with people that are more knowledgeable than I, because that's their level of expertise, that's their specialism. I do not need to be a rail expert with 30 years experience to lead a rail team. And I love opportunities where I can bolster my team with women that are more knowledgeable than I in whatever sphere. It does not disempower me. In fact, it empowers me and it grows the team.
Absolutely.
And so I wish that there were more people that had that same mindset, that if I elevate her, it does not dim my light. It actually enhances it because her success is the team's success, is my success. So yeah, I would love to see a lot more of that.
I hear you. Let me shift just a little bit. Looking back, what are some of the resources or networks that you found valuable in your career?
Never, ever, ever, and I tell people this all the time, never take meeting people for granted. And try as best as possible, especially in business, not to burn your bridges, because whomever you have a fallout with may end up being your boss 10 years down the line, or being a key client 10 years down the line. So make sure that you are mindful, that you practice kindness, that you're a professional, and that you bring professionalism above board all the time. So I'm very intentional about networking. It's key, and it's really, really taken me far in life. Even from the colleagues that I did my degrees with, keep in touch with people that you studied engineering with. Because 10, 20 years down the line, that guy or that lady that you used to sit with in the maths lecturer could be the Minister of Transport, or could be someone quite high up, or someone that you revere and that could actually help open the door to an opportunity down the line.
Yeah.
So get involved in networking sessions, attend conferences, present papers, become an industry expert in your field, market yourself. You yourself are a brand. Do business development, have a LinkedIn profile, connect with like-minded individuals, and never take those connections for granted. Because I don't know how many times I've had to call someone up that I helped with their design project to say, hey, I see that you are a heavy hitter in Sasol. Do you perhaps have a connection for this? And then they'll connect you to exactly the right person. So never take networks and connections for granted.
No, network is...
It's everything.
It is everything. I imagine that the environment that you are in is very demanding and very high pressured.
Oh, very much.
How do you strike a work-life balance?
Oh, so I call it work-life integration.
Yeah,
Because you have to integrate your work in your life,
100%,
etc.
100%.
So for me, fitness is a massive part of my life. And people say, I don't have time to train, but time is created. And I really believe that time is made. If you find that, I can't go to the gym because I finish work so late, well, then get up at 4:00. Get up an hour or two earlier than what you would have, so that you can actually create the time to exercise. So it's a massive part of my life. It keeps me in the right frame of mind all the time. I make very, very tough and difficult decisions at my level. And I have to be sharp all the time. Okay. I also have children. I've got 2 very, very busy boys.
Yeah.
And you have to be the best mom for them. You have to be fully present for them.
Yeah.
So I create the time so that I can support their school activities, help them with their school stuff, and be there. I have to be the best partner to Matthew. And so I need to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind all the time.
Yeah.
And if you are not filling your life with mechanisms that enable you to be the best you in your corporate environment, then you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be burnt out, you're going to be stressed out. So I've had to learn to have a full life and make sure that I have the right balance of intensive work seasons and relaxation, where you can switch off and go on vacation and take that time off. But it's important to eat well, drink your water.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exercise, it full well, so that you can be the best you in the aspects and the facets of life that require you to be. Yeah.
But I guess it wasn't always that way. I mean, you had to learn.
You learn it, yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Were there any challenges trying to strike that work-life balance before you became what you are now? Before you were...
Yes, of course.
Before you figured it out.
Because remember that also your life meanders. So you have seasons of life where you have to change it up a little bit. Seasons where perhaps you can't be at the gym every day, but maybe 3 times a week. So you also have to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace. So there was a season where my second born was born, and then I had to fly a lot for work. And so then I found that because I'm on a plane all the time, I have to try and stay in hotels where there is a gym, because I need to be mindful. And there was a season where I was flying and I had to fly with my breast pump because my boy needs breast milk. And so you take it in your stride all the time. And so allow yourself the flexibility to modify your life as you need to in whatever season of life you are. But never lose the core fundamentals. You have to look after yourself. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. Self-care is high up on the agenda all the time, so that you can make those high pressure decisions and work in a high pressure environment.